I'm getting my podcast mixed up. It's just like dopamine hit after dopamine hit. It looks a lot like it did in February. The worst row in the world. That felt weird. Hi, I'm MsMakes, and this is what I've been making in the month of March. In February, I said I felt like I got a ton of knitting done despite the short month, and March is maybe the opposite, but maybe it's just because I don't see as much of the work that I have done this month, and you'll see why. So let's get into it. I am going to start with what I feel like I put the most work into this month, which is my Minto tee. This is a project I am knitting out of Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the undyed colorway, which I have dyed with natural indigo, and I am working it at a smaller gauge with a little less ease, and I'm converting it from a drop shoulder to a set-in shoulder. So here is where I'm at on it. And if you watched my February video, you might be thinking that it looks a lot like it did in February. And this is where I'm at with it. Because yes, indeed, I'm at basically the same point that I was at the end of February, which is I have finished 100 grams of yarn into the body, and I'm ready to pick up the sleeves. When I was at that point in February, I decided to do a mid-project block so that I could get a really accurate gauge, because I'm having to redo all of the math for the sleeves because of the conversion that I'm doing. And so you can see that it is blocked up here, maybe, and then down here it is not blocked. Once I blocked it, I decided that the armhole depth was in fact much too deep for a set-in sleeve, and so I frogged back all the work I had done on the body and passed 3 cables in the upper, front, and back, just because I wanted to remove a full repeat from the front and back before joining for the arms. And I had added a bit of underarm shaping to the last cable, so I had to undo that as well, and then re-knit that on the front and back, rejoining the round, and re-knit through the rest of the body. So the body's a little bit longer now than it was before because I took yarn out of the top. So yeah, I do feel like I worked the most on this month, and it looks exactly the same as it did last month, but now I'm really ready for the sleeves. I have a good gauge on the top. I actually really do like the fit when I tried it on. The amount of ease in the bust is actually more ease than I thought I was going to get, so that was nice to see. I was kind of ready for a form-fitting sweater, but I think it fits me really lovely, and I'm going to be able to do like a little bit of ease in the arms as well. So it's kind of a relaxed fit, not oversized, but I am really liking where it's at so far. I just knew that anything worth doing was worth doing right, and so I had to undo it. So that's where I'm at with this. I've put a lot of work on it this month, even though you don't see it. So that's the Minto tee. The next project, I don't feel like I put a lot of work into it this month, but I did because I reached my goal on my Jenny jacket. In February, I said that my goal was to join the body and the sleeves, and I did. I'm only a couple rows past the join. There's like over 400 stitches on the needle at this point. Things are very tight because the sleeves are still pretty narrow. I haven't worked them up enough for it to be easy to knit past the sleeves. You've got the smocking rows, which are really tight, and the row that you join the sleeves and the body is also a smocking row, and it was just like the worst row in the world. So I'm there, I've done it. I'm starting my yoke decreases. So making some surprisingly good progress on this. I didn't realize quite how much I had done. I think because I was focused so much on what I had been doing on the Minto tee. So good progress on the Jenny jacket. I am excited. It's just going to get smaller from here. You know, decreases are really have a lot of dopamine to knitting upper body shaping. I think that's why a lot of people like top-down construction, because it's just like dopamine hit after dopamine hit as you're changing something every row. And so I'm at that point with this one. So there's no more long slog. It's just going to get smaller from here. I'm knitting my button band as I go, so the button band will be done when I'm done, and I'll just have to put the collar on and then weave the ends, sew on the buttons, and block it. So very excited about that. And speaking of buttons, I did just get some potential buttons for this, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to tell you about that before I go on to my last project of the month, because this month was also the Carolina Fiber Festival, which is the fiber festival that happens here in Raleigh, North Carolina every March. My friends and I try to go when we're available. I even brought my baby when he was like 2 months old to the Fiber Festival, so we love to go and visit, and it was really great this year. I actually feel like I went in quite underprepared. In the past, my perception has been it's a lot of indie dyers, it's a lot of sock yarn, but I am really interested in like really interesting, unique fiber blends. So that's what I have been looking for in the past, and I haven't seen it, but I feel like the show was really great this year. There was a lot of vendors, there was a lot more variety of vendors, there were some cool displays. We got to try out rug hooking, and of course I had just watched the Periwinkle Lane feature on A Bit Fruity. I'm getting my podcast mixed up. On the Fruity Nitty podcast. And so I was really excited to actually try out rug hooking, and it was a pretty cool thing to just see it in person after having watched that podcast. So we really liked it. One of the first vendors that we went to when we got in the door was Dusty's Vintage Buttons. And she had just the most unique, coolest selection of buttons we could have found. And she doesn't sell online, she only sells in shows. So I have her show list here because I'm going to read some of them out. She's going to be at some big ones. She's going to be at Maryland Sheep and Wool. She's also going to be at Rhinebeck. If anyone is going to those, keep an eye out for Dusty's Vintage Buttons. She's also going to be at the Southern Comfort Fiber Market in Charlotte, which is what I didn't know about, and we might check out because it's pretty nearby. The Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival in Virginia, and then the Southern Animal Fiber Fair, which is near Asheville, North Carolina, at their fairgrounds. I used to live in Asheville, and I had never been to that show before, but maybe an excuse to go this year because my best friend Rebecca said, we're going to take this show list and we're going to follow her around because her buttons were so cool. I have a weakness for unique buttons, and it's kind of one of my specialties I consider when I sew. I love wearing and sewing button-up shirts. I have made a lot of them, and I try to make buttons my like unique detail. When I make something, I really want for it to have something about it that says, this was not mass manufactured. There is something about this that is totally unique, and that means that someone made it. And a lot of times I put that into my buttons. I love sewing my buttons on with different color threads. I like doing different color buttonholes or different style buttonholes. I like using interesting buttons. I love shell buttons, abalone buttons, and mother of pearl are two of my favorites. I love vintage glass buttons. I actually have quite a little collection of vintage glass buttons that I have mostly got on Etsy out of like dead stock Ukrainian button factories. And so I definitely have a weakness for buttons, and we were really excited by what we found. So I got a couple little sets of different shell buttons. These ones are just normal mother of pearl on the front, but they're actually quite green on the back. I will put a picture in if this is not showing up. So I thought it'd be really cool to use these buttons on a shirt in reverse. I also got these mother of pearl buttons that have these really big holes in them, and I've seen people attaching buttons with like little embroidery shapes to make flowers or something like that, so I thought that would be a cool use for these buttons. So those were the sewing buttons I got, and then I got some large buttons that I figured would be more usable on knitting projects. So the two main options, or really three. First, I started picking up these large mother of pearl buttons. They have a shank on the back. They're just slightly textured and very pretty, and I thought they would go well because the BGC Bouche's candy colorway is like a little bit multicolored and iridescent, so I thought that might look nice. She had this bin of like loose buttons. She had a ton of button cards, but we dug through every button in the loose button bin to find enough of these buttons. We also, in our digging, found these, which are just so cool, shell buttons cut in a geometric shape. They have a metal shank on the back, and I just loved the shape of those and thought they were so neat. And then the last one, we started finding these dark abalone buttons, and I did think that these might stand out a little more and be a little more special on the Jenny jacket. So I'm going to photograph all of them. I might put a poll up on my Instagram. Let me know what you think buttons I should use on this jacket. I definitely have had on my list for a while that I want to be knitting more cardigans, so the other buttons will definitely be used. My friends that I were with also bought buttons from Dusty's Vintage Buttons, both collections of shirt buttons and buttons for knitting cardigans. I just have to shout out my friend Kate's button selection because she got these buttons, which are from the 19th century. They're called composite buttons, and they're like a mix of stone and horn and shell, and they just look really, really cool. They're very unique. And she also got some cool yarn that is going to really offset those buttons, because there were some really cool fibers available at the festival. There was this one vendor called the Miller Girls, and they had just super unique fibers and fiber blends. So Kate picked up 100% llama and then a yak merino alpaca silk blend, which is this beautiful gray color because of the yak fibers. That's what she's going to use with her composite buttons. I'm actually really regretting not getting that yak blend fiber. Rebecca got some of it too, and so I haven't seen it up on their website, but I'm going to keep an eye out because I have a project in mind for it. I did just purchase 200 grams of this silk fiber in like a peacock green. They had a lot of beautiful silks in a range of sizes, from like super fine stuff that would be great for weaving or holding multiple strands together to actually, like this is a normal fingering weight. So I don't have like super specific plans for this yet. It's just kind of a for the future type of thing, but I do love knitting with 100% silk, and so I couldn't pass this up because it was a very, very beautiful color. Now I mentioned I didn't feel like I went into the Fiber Festival with much of a plan, and it's true. I realized afterwards, especially like at the Miller Girls, that I have been wanting to make another Nettie shawl by Lily Kate Makes, the large version, and I want 2 colors. And I could have purchased some like beautiful silk, or they had some great cotton wool blends, cotton silk blends. I could have purchased some of that for making that Nettie shawl, and I just didn't think about it. So I should have had more of a list when I went in, but the one thing that I was thinking about was making some socks. And that is probably just colored by my past experience at the Fiber Festival, where my overall impression was that it was mostly sock yarns, but there was so much more this year, so I'm sad I didn't have a better list. So my mother-in-law asked for her birthday, on her wider birthday list that was sent to all of my husband's family. One of the things on the list was that she had really been loving her Darn Tough wool socks, and she wanted some more of them. I am also a wool sock aficionado. Smart Wools tends to be my brand, but also, of course, hand knit socks. And so I picked that off the list as my gift to her because I also love wool socks. I bought her some cute patterns from Darn Tough, and I also said I'm going to knit a special bonus gift and knit her some wool socks as well. Now, my mother-in-law is Dutch, and so my first thought went to the Tiptoe Through the Tulips pattern from Stone Knits, but she's not really a spring colors person. She's actually really into like Halloween and stuff, and so when I saw this colorway from the Granite Mountain Fiber Company, which is called Scenic Parkway, I thought it would just be perfect for the actual tulip part of the Tiptoe Through the Tulips pattern. It is an orange and white and like a very steely blue gray and some browns and greens in there. So this is very pretty. And to go with it, my friends convinced me, they're a little bit better at picking at colors than me, to actually use like a white for the stems. I was looking for green mini skeins and I could not find any, but they convinced me to use a white, and so I picked up this color, which is Birch from the Fiber Seed. They had it in some mini skeins, and so this is like a very marshmallowy, kind of gray toned neutral white, and it actually really matches the whiter sections of the multicolored yarn pretty well. And then we thought about a dark color for the base background color. There is one sample in the Stone Knits where it's like black in the background, and so we were really into that. I wound up picking up this color, which is called Black Ice. It is a super duper dark navy, and this is from Robin's Promise. But by the end of this, we had walked the show so many times, and I think my brain was turning into mush, holding all the different options for sock pairings in my mind at once, and I somehow accidentally grabbed a ball of DK instead of fingering weight. It is like nylon blend, like it is a sock yarn, but it's DK, so it doesn't go with everything else. And I realized that when I got home and immediately started winding it, and it wound so fast, and I was like, that felt weird. So I love the colors together, but it was wrong. I thought about running back to the festival in the afternoon with my toddler in tow. I thought about just completely rewriting the pattern for the socks to be at a DK gauge and holding the other two yarns together, which is something that I have done before. And then my husband pointed out, well, this is like the most basic color. You're not trying to replicate this super special colorway, even though the people at Robin's Promise were so nice. We so loved talking to them. So he said, why don't you just go out to the regular yarn store and buy something similar. So I did wind up running to one of my local yarn stores, Great Yarns, and they happen to have this skein of Linares Yarn Co. Beartooth High Twist, which is one of my favorite sock yarns in stock, and it is the shade Winter is Coming. So it is a steely gray. You get a little bit of barber pole effect because of the high twist ply, and it looks almost, perfect with the Scenic Parkway colorway. Too perfect, in fact, because once I started knitting them together, the gray colors of Scenic Parkway are identical to this gray, and I couldn't even tell my stitches apart on the needle, and the pattern of the tulips was just completely lost. Round 3 of trying to get some yarn for these socks. I had been looking through the collections in my local yarn stores online, and I really wasn't finding a navy, but I did think that going back to that original idea of navy was best because it would complement but not contrast, not like overlap with the Scenic Parkway colorway. And so at a different store online, at one of my local yarn stores, I did find this skein of the same Linares Beartooth High Twist in the color Blue Lagoon, which is a lighter blue than Black Ice. It's also much more intense. So it is like really cobalty, deep blue, and it's got, again, a little bit of the barber pole effect from the high twist ply, but it does look really nice. Third tie's the charm. I got the right yarn for these socks. Now I have 200 extra grams of sock yarn just in my stash. I thought actually I'd like to knit a pair of table socks out of this gray. I think that'd be really pretty. And for the DK, like a very simple pair of comfy ribbed socks in a DK weight I thought would be nice. But yes, that was my comedy of errors trying to get the correct yarn for these socks. But I did it in the end. And because my mother-in-law's birthday is coming up so soon, this is the third project that I have focused on the most this month, the Tiptoe Through the Tulips socks by Stone Knits. I am one repeat past the split for the heel. I'm converting it from a short row heel to a forethought heel with a gusset to add a little bit more room in the heel ankle angle. It's tough knitting a pair of socks for someone you don't have their size, so I am erring on the larger side here, and if they're just like a comfy slouchy pair of socks for around the house for her, then so be it. But I have put in my waist yarn for the heel, and this is where I'm at on these socks. They are turning out very pretty. Enjoying the pattern so far. It's pretty basic, and I'm flying through it pretty good. I think I'm going to have a ton left over, especially of the Scenic Parkway colorway. And my toddler, when saw me knitting these, said they're socks for Oma. He asked if he could have some socks too, so I'm probably going to knit some variation on this as a pair of toddler socks, maybe just like one row of tulips around the ankle or something. And I think that's going to be the best gift, is matching socks for my toddler and Ova, because he was just so excited about it. So that's where I'm at with these socks. That's what I've been putting most of my effort into this month. And I just have, I think, 2 more rows of flowers before the toe, then the heel, and it's taking me a bit less than a week of work to do. So I'm pretty confident in it. in winding all those balls of sock yarn, because I knit my socks 2 at a time, so every ball of yarn I wound and then put on the scale, wound off half of it, and then rewound the remaining half. And I did that for a lot of different colors of yarn, plus helping some of my friends wind their yarn from the Fiber Festival. My yarn winder finally went kaput. I had like the Knit Picks plastic winder that's pretty cheap, and it just stopped turning. So I also wound up ordering one of those wood yarn winders from Etsy, where you like turn it on the table and it has a band to turn the skein winder. Still getting used to it. Is making some pretty uneven balls for me. It doesn't all go together tightly. You have to kind of like push it where it needs to go. It doesn't kind of inherently go together that way. So still learning that one, but I did have to get a new ball winder. One final thing, last month I did say that I was planning on casting on the Artemisia sweater this month. I did not get to it because of those socks took priority, but I did get around to swatching it. So I'm very happy with my swatch. My gauge is good with, because I am not using the called for yarn, I'm using the Knit Picks Bubbly Blue Clay, which is a smaller yarn, and I'm holding it together with some mohair from Through the Wardrobe Yarn Company to bulk it up. So just check that my gauge is good. The fabric is very soft. It is a super subtle rainbow that probably won't, not much of it showed up in my swatch, and so it definitely probably won't show up on camera. There's just a couple splotches of pink on here. So I am excited about that, and that'll be on the list as soon as the socks are done. But I am running out of light here, so thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at MsMakes. I'm also on Ravelry at MsMakes, and keep checking back for more knitting updates, as well as updates on anything else crafty that I'm making. So thank you so much for watching.